Hello everyone, my name is Leonidas Hernandez and I'm from El Salvador, Central America. I'm studying a master's degree in applied economics at the Universidad Católica del Norte, Antofagasta, Chile. In this video, I'm going to present a research paper conducted by Félix Mondrego, Dusan Paredes, and Gianni Romaní on the topic individual and place-based drivers of self-employment in Chile. This review will be divided into the next part: motivation, modeling framework, variables and data, result, conclusion, trend, improvement opportunities. This paper analyzes the importance of individual and place characteristics on the selection into self-employment in Chile, following a structural and multi-level empirical approach. The author tests whether both selection of variables explain the variation of individual wage, self-employment earning, and the propensity to being in independent work. Entrepreneurship has been regarded as a main driver of development in market economies. The importance of entrepreneurship for development renewed the interest for understanding the factor promoting entrepreneurial activity. There are a lot of studies about the importance of individual traits for self-employment and entrepreneurship. However, most applied studies are spatially neutral and ignore the fundamental trade-off between the return to self-employment and salaried work. There is a need to move toward a more structured, economically grounded, and spatially sensitive approach to the drivers of self-employment. We can ask ourselves, do territorial conditions help to explain the selection into self-employment in Chile? Once individual attributes are taken into account, there are municipalities with self-employment rate that double the rates of others. Therefore, the starting hypothesis is that play exerts an influence above and beyond individual characteristics, since it conditions the performance of business and the productivity of workers, shaping the expectation on relativity returns to alternative occupation. In order to this research, they had to construct some model. This equation imply that at any moment the individual assesses the potential return to each occupation based on the actual earnings. It observes for individuals with similar characteristics and located in the same regional economy. People can also choose self-employment based on different personality traits that shape individual preference toward self-employment, such as orientation to control and achievement or a desire for a labor independence. These varied motivations are captured by variables y, I. In addition, regional conditions may influence attitude towards self-employment, such as risk in local labor makers or the local entrepreneurial culture. These regional conditions are captured by variables PR. This equation is estimated following a two-stage procedure. In the first stage, expected wage and self-employed earning are predicted. In the second stage, the selection equation is estimated with the predicted earning differential. This allows to build expected earning to each observed occupation in the sample and test for the hypothetical trade-off between expected self-employment earning and wage involved in the decision of becoming an independent worker. To specify the earning equation, investigators have assumed first that each individual is equipped with a range of either intrinsic or acquired attributes, we generally call human capital. For analytic purposes, human capital is split in a set of skills conditioning their labor productivity and a set of attributes defining their ability to manage business. On the other hand, productivity in self-employment positively depends on the managerial skill of the entrepreneurship, HE. But we also include here the same regional variable capturing the effect of location on worker productivity, ZR. Finally, we consider fixed costs of setting up and running a business, which also varies across location, FR. The framework above make it clear that individual and place-based factors affect the propensity to self-employment both directly and indirectly. This modeling framework should be seen as a partial equilibrium approach aimed at emphasizing on the equilibrium condition of free entry into self-employment based on earning differential. Empirical implementation. Investigators follow a multi-level modeling strategy. The use of multi-level estimation method allows incorporating these different sources of variation and also capturing the interaction between factors of different scales. So we can assess the relative contribution of both set of variables in explaining the variation of the dependent variable. Individual level data was taken from the 2009 Chilean National Socioeconomic Survey, CACEN. For the selection equation, the dependent variables take the value of 1 for self-employed and 0 for salaried workers. They define self-employment aggregating both forms of independent work in CACEN's survey, employers and on-account self-employed. Later, they separate the sample between these two subgroups. Salaried workers are defined as wage employees in the private sector. Wage and self-employer earnings are built from the net earning declared for the main occupation by salaried and independent workers respectively, as recorded by CACEN. To remove outliers, they exclude the lower and the upper 1% of wage and self-employed earnings. This filter yielded a total sample of 46,472 individuals. What is distinctive in the Chilean case is the distribution of earnings. This figure illustrates the earning distribution for salaried workers and self-employed. Earnings of the self-employed are larger in average and considerably more dispersed. However, unlike other studies in developed countries pointed at some few superstar entrepreneurs driving average earnings up, self-employed earnings in Chile tend to be higher than wage along most the distribution wage, and therefore opportunity costs of self-employed are in general very low in Chile. The positive coefficient for the municipal housing price index suggests, as pointed by spatial equilibrium models, that firms located in places with higher housing price must compensate workers for the greater cost of living, ceteris paribus. The market potential variable showed, against theoretical expectation, a negative and not significant correlation with wage, which confirmed findings by other cross-sectional studies in Chile. Regarding the self-employed earning equation, results show, as Miserian expected, that human capital variables behave in similar way compared to the wage equation, indicating that, in general, human capital is also associated with greater return to self-employment. However, estimation reveal a lower marginal return to schooling and experience in self-employment compared with salaried work. Also, it is important to recognize that female self-employed earn less than males do. Even after controlling for other observables, the gender penalty is actually larger in self-employment. The coefficient of the municipal market potential is, again, negative and not significant, which contradicts the idea of profit-enhancing effect of proximity to large markets. Finally, the variables capturing human capital externalities show the expected positive and statistically significant coefficient. That is the case of the average schooling in the municipality and local entrepreneurial activity. In particular, average schooling in the comuna show a large coefficient for the self-employed, suggesting the importance of knowledge externality for thriving entrepreneurial environment. The results indicate that while most of the variation in these three outcomes is explained by individual traits, place-related variables account for a non-negligible share of spatial variation. Second, as suggested by occupational choice theories, the propensity of being in self-employment possibility correlative with larger expected earning differential, but only in the case of employers. This, along with other results, suggests that while employers seem to choose their occupation status on account in Chile, seem to respond to factors pushing them into self-employment. Research strategy has allowed testing the selection based on return to alternative occupation suggested by economic models of occupational choice. Although the theory fits well in the case of employers, that is not the case for on-account self-employed. The analysis disentangled the net partial effect of both individual and place characteristics on the probability of being in self-employment, taking into account their potentially compensating indirect effect through the opportunity cost of self-employment, which, as reported for developing countries, having a parent self-employed and collateral are two factors positively and significantly correlated with the probability of being in self-employment. On the contrary, and against expectation, municipal market potential has a negative and significant effect. We are unable to find market gender effect in the probability of being observed as employer. Although there are significant positive correlations between female and being in on-account self-employment. The result provides some guidelines for entrepreneurship support policies in Chile. An immediate conclusion is that program focuses on strengthening capacities of individual entrepreneurs remain well warranted. However, there is a need for differentiated approach customized to different forms of entrepreneurship. This paper allows to identify the main difference between direct employment and self-employment revenues. People who decide to start a business expect to have earnings according to their effort. Another interesting fact about this paper is that it evidences the gender penalty that exists on employment and self-employment for men and women, in which women perceive less revenue than men. The main challenge I find after reading this paper is being able to use this methodology in developing countries in which employment and self-employment are very different from Chile. In some other countries, there are additional variables that should be taken into account that could affect the revenues obtained for employment and self-employment. On the other hand, this paper leaves me with an exciting question. Is there a role for place-based entrepreneurship support policies in Chile? This has been my presentation. Thank you very much for your time.